speed. Vaccaro slammed it home. Garland left wing, 3-ball. Perfect. Garland one of the lane, lobbed to Mobley. Pow! And Allen blocked the shot at the rim. Pow! With the left hand and a foul.
Hello and welcome to the Chase Down Podcast. The Cavaliers enter All-Star break as winners in a ugly game, choppy as can be against the Chicago Bulls. They fight and claw their way to, I think they never led by more than one possession, but that was enough. And the Cavaliers go into the All-Star break winning 18-20, which is very, very, very good. My name is Carter Rodriguez. I will be hosting today because our boy Justin is sore. The Achilles is killing him. He's under the weather. Poor guy is having a rough one, but we never have a rough one. With Fubo TV, the Chase Down Podcast is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including Bally Sports Ohio, without cable. There's no cost. There's no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. And with no Justin on, I thought about doing a solo pod, but Cavs won. It's fun. Let's share the wealth. Let's share the fun. So, honorary third Chase Down co-host Jeff Nomina joins the show. Jeff, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. I love ending on a win, a normal NBA win where we've been so spoiled that we're not used to these wins that sometimes you have to tough it out against a team that you think you should beat. It's been so long since we've had to do this that it felt like the sky was falling. But I love getting a win, going into the break with good taste in our mouths, and now Justin can rest for a little bit, right? He's got the break to recover.
Boy, does he need it. The poor guy is catching L's left and right. It was funny during the game. I was, as both me and you are apt to do, I was getting a little pouty because I was like, we're just never going to the All-Star break, right? I feel like we always, it's like, I was like at my daughter, I never get to do this. That's the headspace I was in. Is just, there was a lid on the basket. They can't, every time they get within one possession, Kobe White splashes a three or they pick up a foul that is a frustrating in nature. They couldn't get past it, and then they just did it. It was a run with Darius Garland and George Niang, who was having a really rough game, and then all of a sudden, helped us take control of the game, including kind of firing up his teammates, getting into it with Kobe White. And I think there's no better way to start by saying, Jeff, aren't you so happy we win honorably? We're up three, and we don't foul, we guard.
Right. We've got respect around here. We're not a bunch of grifters.
Yeah, but seriously, I do like it. It's one thing. I would love to if I could ever ask the Cavs coaching staff on or off the record, hey, why don't you guys foul up three? Because I love that they don't, and I'm not being sarcastic. I really don't like it. I feel like it just is a bummer way. It's one of those things where the strategy in gamification of trying to win, it makes sense that teams do it at this level because winning matters so much. But it just never feels good, no matter what game you're watching and what side you're rooting for, right?
Yeah, and I love that, JB's got the trust in his guys to go out there and do it, right? I mean, he had a core out there and everything. He had the personnel, he had the guys. They locked down finally near the end there, and I love that he has the trust in them. I agree. It's not fun. It's not always fun to win by the numbers, right? Sometimes it's fun to win by the honor of the game and all that. It sounds stupid, but it is fun to go out and trust your guys and go out and try to win making basketball plays.
Yeah, and what's been nice is it hasn't burned them, not only is it the strategy I prefer as a fan of the game, it also is working because this team, to your point, can trust their best defensive players. They're just not messing up down the stretch of these games, their fundamentals and their belief in each other, I just feel like it gets ramped up to 11 on those closing plays, and that's why they're not, botching a switch or lunging out of position to go cover someone who is already being guarded. How many times do we watch other teams, especially in those tight moments, have two guys closing out on a shooter? It doesn't seem to happen with the Cavs, especially down the stretch, and it's really, really fun. And it's probably a decent segue. And by the way, I totally buried the lead. We have Sam Merrill joining the show at the end of this. I got a chance to talk to him yesterday afternoon. I'm not taking any accountability for his getting sick. As far as I'm concerned, he gritted it out just to make an appearance on the pod and had nothing left for the court.
Justin couldn't. Right?
Yeah, he did what Justin couldn't in every meaningful way. So Sam, we will be tossing to Sam at the end of this one, and we'll probably be posting the YouTube clip separately. So if you know, please be sure to stick around to hear from Sam, who's having obviously a dream season, tonight's illness notwithstanding. But I did want to kind of transition to talk about Isaac Okoro, who not only had an amazing game. Went 4 of 8 from 3, including at least a couple above the break attempts, at least one make. Or I think it was the wing. It wasn't above the break, but some really great rim attacks, great playmaking, and perhaps we've seen Ice do this before, but perhaps most notably, JB closed the game with him.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
I'm interested to. I think it's one of the first times we've seen, with the full complement of players available, JB kind of try something else. And like I don't know. Are you taking much from that, or is it just Ice is having an awesome game? Kobe White's been insane, and why not just keep Ice out there? Like, are you taking anything from that?
I think I'm taking from it is that he's kind of forcing the issue a little bit. If he's going to play that well, you'd be crazy not to try it out there, right? Like if he's going to be shooting without hesitation, if he's going to know when to put the ball on the ground, if he's going to be finding guys when he puts the ball on the ground and able to keep his head up and see those passing lanes while playing that defense, like he's going to force the issue because it changes. I love Strus. I love Strus's game. I love everything he's done this season, but it changes the dynamic a little bit with that level of defender out there with the two bigs. If you can close with that in those kind of possessions, and I mean, he's forcing the issue a little bit if he's going to play like that. It's still getting to the consistency of doing that all the time, but the shot is starting to get to the point where it's feeling fairly consistent.
Yeah, I agree. And the volume, and it goes through these waves. It's in, when he's on one of these heaters, it feels like, oh, he's got it figured out. And then, then there's a 3 or 4 game stretch where, I feel like with him more than any other player, seeing how the angle it comes off his hand will tell you whether it's going to go in or not. And he'll have some backslides, but overall, like when he's like this, you're right, he is going to force the issue. But I think you also should give some credit to JB and the coaching staff, because most teams close with the same guys in crunch time every time. They have their 5 that they really trust, and it's not like Strus was having an exceptionally bad game. Maybe not crazy efficient from the field, but he wasn't having like an uncommonly bad game. I think this was more a matter of Ice just taking it and JB reading the room, reading what Chicago had on the floor, and saying, hey, if we just lock down, we're going to win. And that's what happened. So I just thought it was a really, really fun stretch for Ice, who, fair to say he's playing the best basketball of his career right now this season. Like, do we feel like, the word leap gets abused, but like, do we feel like he's taken a little jump in terms of like, we thought he was this, but he's actually this, he's a little bit, or do you think this is just normal iterative stuff?
No, I think he's making a leap. The best stretch, I would probably say yes. He did have that stretch at the end. Was it 2 years ago where he was averaging like 16 a game, and maybe his counting stats were a little bit higher. But I think this is the best stretch where he's putting it all together in terms of being more, being able to do more. His shots going in, he's putting the ball on the ground, he's able to find guys, but he's still playing that elite defense. And I think he's kind of putting it all together into one package right now in a way that we haven't seen him really do. So I do think he's kind of making a little bit of a leap here. Where that goes, I don't know how, where it nets out at the end. You never know when you're kind of in the middle of one of these. But I do think he's kind of, to the earlier point, forcing the issue that he has to get a certain, he needs to be out there more than maybe what we thought a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, it's funny. I was watching this game and I was thinking, like, does Ice need to be the first perimeter guy off the bench right now, like for this team? Like is he starting to earn that level of equity, especially when you think about the way the rotations typically play out in the NBA, where your your lead player, at least most teams are playing them the first 8-9 minutes of the first quarter. Like if you're doing that first sub at the 8-minute mark or the 7.5-minute mark, like doesn't it almost make sense to just say, hey, second units are coming in, but their star is still going to be out there. Ice go shut his water off and kind of change the game. Like the more I watch him play this way, especially now that Darius and Donovan are both available to take on that creation, and Evan and Jarrett are always both there to protect the paint, for 48 minutes. Do you kind of start leaning towards like, hey, Ice might, I don't really care about like 6-man designation, but like, should he start moving up the kind of the minutes list for bench players?
Oh, I definitely think he should be moving up the minutes list. And I think Donovan making such a leap on his playmaking and his passing helps too, where you're not leaning on LeVert quite so much for that. There was a span where we kind of needed that, but I think Donovan's taken such a big leap there that he's able to run the offense quite a bit, and it lets you kind of have the luxury of using an Ice more, where you don't have to have LeVert out there if Garland's not there as well, which is helpful for sure. But I definitely think we have a good problem, because you were talking about Sam Merrill. Like, man, we've got so many guys that need minutes and are helpful and bring kind of elite skill sets out there. It's crazy to talk about bumping anyone's minutes up, because there's so many guys who need minutes right now.
Yeah, and I think you just look at some guys who you just don't ride as hard on nights where they don't have it, but like that's a double-edged sword. Like it's very easy to say that the coaching staff should be like, okay, if Niang doesn't have it on a given night, you just should probably pull him out. I mean, again, he was part of the stretch that won us the game, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And was playing, bully ball on offense, hit an important three on a night where his 3-pointer was not there. And like, if he doesn't get that second shift, how does the game change? I don't know. So, there's no easy solutions here. I do think it probably starts with Max just moving down. I mean, like early in the season, Max was playing like 36, 37 minutes a night. Like he's already starting to settle. Yeah, we needed every second of them. I feel like he's starting to settle back down into like the 28 to 30. That seems appropriate, and that makes it a lot easier. But yeah, even on a night where we only really had 8 guys that, JB was really going to trust in a competitive stretch of a game, the minute distributions were really even. Evan plays 31, Darius plays 31. Donovan's the only one who played heavy minutes at 39, and I think we got to give Donovan some love, because I know that the stretch with him off the floor with Darius and George kind of finally put us into the lead. I feel like Donovan was just dragging the rest of the team
yes.
through the first 3 quarters of this game.
He's gotten so good. And maybe I think this is something that maybe even from last year has improved, right? He's so good at knowing when to drag the team, like when things are bogged down and he needs to kind of take over, and when he needs to just get guys going and keep the offense moving. Like he's gotten so good at, all right, things just aren't going well for us right now. I need to kind of go out and be the hero versus, okay, let's get everybody moving. Things are clicking a little bit. Let's keep that going. He's really found that balance, I think, of knowing when to lean into each way. And it's just been so important. I can't say enough good things about how good he's been this year. And
his takeovers have been so forceful, Like I feel like if you were, 2 years ago before we made this trade, if you were to ask me, Donovan Mitchell, he's probably going to have stretches where he kind of commandeers the game and takes over. I would have assumed it's like a bunch of middies and 3-point pull-ups, and like that's part of it for sure. But like he was very forceful tonight. He was like almost like saying with his body language, and I'm speaking for him, which is probably not fair, but I'm like he's like I feel like he was almost telling the rest of the team like, look how hard I'm going right now. Mm-hmm. Like look how hard I'm attacking. And how decisive and forceful I'm being with my dribble, with my attacks. So get on board with me now. And like when he subbed out at the end of the third quarter with I think it was about 3 minutes to go, you could tell he was spent. Like he was fried. And I feel like the rest of the team just picked up that message and was like, okay, Donovan kept us in this. It's time for us to like, start wresting control of this thing from the Bulls, who did not want to give it up.
No, they did not. This was a frustrating game. I kept feeling like they were going to go away. Like, I don't know about you. I just kept feeling like, okay, this is where we pull away. Like, This is where it finally, and it wasn't happening. But yes, Donovan plays with a different level of urgency than I think basically anybody else plays with. And that's not to be a knock on anybody else at all, but he plays with just a certain amount of force and just attitude that is hard to replicate. And I do think helps the rest of the team. Like, they kind of need that guy to, straw that stirs the drink kind of a guy that just makes things go when they're getting bogged down a little bit. And he's so good at that.
Yeah. Just a really cool Donovan game. It wasn't like a crazy efficient one. I mean, he got to 30 points because he got to the line a ton for the second straight game, which is fun to see because we don't always get to see that. Unfortunately, he had 30 points on 21 shots, but he went 8 of 21, 2 of 8 from 3. But 7 assists to 0 turnovers. Obviously super duper impressive and super fun. So really, really a fun Donovan game. What did you think of Darius's game? Because there were times where I felt like the play was outpacing the results. I thought the game against Philly, he had one of the best box score. Definitely his best box score since returning. I almost felt like he played a better game tonight, at least as a playmaker. Like, he was hitting guys in the shooting pocket on the wing over and over and over again. In the rhythm only Darius has, where the defense should have been one pass away and shouldn't have, generated a clean look for Niang or Strus. But it did because of, the way he kind of lulls people to sleep. What did you think of his game? Because again, 12 and 7, 4 of 10 from the field. This is nothing to lose your mind about, but I thought he played a nice game.
Yeah, I thought he started out doing a little bit of the probing that he likes to do. He likes to get the ball, kind of dribble around, kind of probe around, and the way they've shifted since then is a lot more ball movement. So like the first couple of possessions, I was like, all right, come on, let's get the ball out of your hands, keep going. But I thought he settled in, and I'd love to see the turnovers have gone way down. I don't know what the final box score was tonight, but I know the other night
2 turnovers tonight.
Yeah,
I'm happy with 7 or 8 assists and 2 turnovers every game. That is fine with me.
And earlier in the year, that seemed to be more of an issue. He was kind of getting himself.
It was a 1-to-1 ratio at points. He was averaging like 6 or 7 assists and averaging 5 or 6 turnovers for 5-10 game stretches. I don't know if it was the hand or what, but it was ugly.
Yes. And so I think he's really settled down there where he's being super efficient. He's being safe with the ball, and you can trust him. You can give him the ball. You can trust him to go out and make something happen. And he always has kind of been like a pass first guy, but I think it works really well with this group. And we kind of finally have the personnel where that works even better. I think he's finding guys on the perimeter better. He's finding the best parts of his game and molding those to kind of where the Cavs are now versus where they were when he got injured in the first place. And I think that's been a huge step.
Yeah, and I think
the stat I track constantly is just how many threes he takes all the time. I think he's been doing a great job of taking more. I think I tried to pull it earlier today. It was like 35% of his shots before the injury. It's close to like 45% since. Like, I think he's doing a good job of really hitting those.
Yeah, I think if you're hyper focusing on just counting how many 3-point attempts per game he has, like, you might not see a growth, but you also have to recognize he's playing a lower volume game right now. Because, like, you can kind of, I feel like him more than anyone, we're watching him try to figure out how he wants to plug in to what the Cavs are doing right this second, and so he only took 10 shots today, so 50% of his shots today were from 3.
Yeah,
like, I'm comfortable with that. And by the way, I mean, how good did that step back over Caruso feel? And it was probably the first time since he's been back where I'm like, take the shot, DG, do it to him. and then he rewarded my good faith with a 3. And again, that's one of those things. Kobe White ended up getting it right back on the other end. And by the way, brief aside, isn't it wild that the Cavaliers are guarding Kobe White like he is the guy to guard on Chicago, not DeRozan? Like, they put Okoro on Kobe and said, Karras or Strus or anyone else can guard DeMar, but if we need a stop, we're putting Okoro on Kobe White, not DeRozan.
It was well deserved. I mean, Kobe was killing us, right? I mean, that was what was going wrong for a good portion of the game, where he was just hitting killer shot, and they weren't wide open shots. I mean,
that one
shots.
Full sprint baseline kind of leaner that he hit, the mid ranger near the end. I was like, oh my god, that's a crazy challenging shot that, like, I thought the broadcast kind of undersold. I'm like, he was at a full sprint. That was like a Westbrookian level sprint. He pretty much like landed in the stands off the jumper and yet made it. So he was awesome. But yeah, I thought that DG's 3-point shooting is starting to feel better. And like, I will continue to say, if you've got a gripe with Darius, it's probably just because he's not hitting his threes like we're used to him hitting his threes. You know, if he's back, he was a 41% 3-point shooter last year, and he's around 33% this year. I mean, a guy like of his frame is just not really crazy built to accommodate that level of a drop in accuracy. So, like, I just felt like that shot over Caruso, one of the best on-ball defenders in the entire NBA, I don't know, it just felt meaningful to me.
Oh yeah, for sure. And getting that confidence, like turning that, like, we know he's closer to 41 than 33, right? Like, yes. I would expect him close to that 41. And so getting the confidence back, starting to hit those, starting to see the ball go in, I think is only going to be good for him to continue to have that confidence to get to that shot too.
Yeah, I mean, Darius is certainly instilling confidence bit by bit, but something that instills my confidence every day is our video conference software. Now, support for this podcast and the following message come from Zoom. 500,000 businesses connect using Zoom, a single platform for phone, chat, workspaces, events, apps, and video. Zoom enables real-time collaboration for teams around the globe. Zoom, how the world connects. Let's talk about the bigs, Jeff. Mobley is taking jumpers again. It didn't always look great leaving his hand, but like, I don't have his shot chart in front of me right now, but I feel like he was more comfortable pulling both from the post, catch and shoot from mid-range. Obviously, he splashed a corner three. I feel like, and en route to 6 of 8 from the field, 14 points, 9 boards. I thought Chicago did a good job with their two bigs of kind of stifling some of our bigs' playmaking from the high post. Only 3 assists combined for, Allen and Mobley tonight. But yeah, what do you think? What are you seeing out of Mobley's jumper right now? Because I feel like I just didn't want him afraid to take them, so I don't even care about the results. I'm just glad he's taking them.
Yeah, it's interesting. His 3 looks so good. His mid range still looks pretty shaky, but it's interesting how good the 3 looks. I think, like, further out, he seems to almost have a better form, and he's nailing those. Like, that's been huge. Mid range is still a little bit of an adventure, but it's awesome that he's taking them. Like, that's the only way to get better is to keep going to it, to keep trying. I think he's come back. He's looked a little bit of a different player to me. I think he's doing a lot more like face up, trying to get around guys, use his length to finish around guys instead of backing guys down so much. So I think he's looked really good in attacking in different ways. Even if he's starting from further out, if he's not taking that jumper, he's at least attacking from there and using, attacking that space and getting to there. So I've been super excited since he came back about how he looks offensively.
Yeah, me too. And I feel like I don't know if you feel this way, because I don't think they're starting games crazy good offensively right now. Like, I mean, they certainly didn't start tonight crazy good. I still feel like this is a spot where I feel like the process is outpacing the results. Like, I feel like they're generating really good looks with their starting lineup right now. I just think Darius and Max aren't hitting that well, and like, I think that kind of changes the math a little bit and maybe sinks those offensive ratings down a little bit. But like, how are you feeling like they're reintegrating? And this is really the first extended stretch of the starting lineup that we've seen pretty much all year. Like, what are you seeing from that group?
I think it's been encouraging that we're seeing Allen and Mobley both doing really well, both putting up big numbers. I kind of felt like at the beginning of the year, Allen almost got completely forgot. Like he just kind of got pushed so far back that it was almost at a detriment where like, hey, if you've got this guy out there, like you got to use him or it kind of defeats the purpose, right? So I think that I've been pretty encouraged with the last couple of weeks with those two where this could be off, but like it feels like every night they're pretty similar, like they're both within 3 or 4 points of each other, both within 3 or 4 rebounds of each other, or over the span of a couple of games, it averages pretty close. And I kind of think that's like the ideal spot to be in with them, where you're not relying too heavily on one where the defense can key in. Like either guy can go off, either guy can figure out which matchup he has and figure it out. And I think that they've been able to find a little bit of space, find things that work in ways that at the beginning of the year, I didn't feel like were working quite as well.
Yeah, and I think Jarrett's just playing much more forcefully. He had a couple dunks tonight where I was like, woo. I mean, and by the way, heck of a job. I know Vooch and Drummond had 7 combined offensive rebounds. Those boys were working, boxing those guys out. Drummond is still a bear on the boards. I mean, he had 15 boards tonight. He was working. Most of his boards were when his man had to go help. But no matter what, both those guys were digging and fighting, gang rebounding across the board. Mitchell had 6 boards. Levert had 4. I just felt like everyone was helping on the glass tonight against those guys. So I'm really enjoying what I'm seeing out of our bigs right now. I think, and I will say this is crazy anecdotal. It's not backed by anything. I do feel like as fun as it's been having Okoro, with the Okoro, Wade, Allen minutes where we were playing great defense, doesn't it just feel nastier? The defensive ceiling feels so much higher when the two bigs are really on fire, really plugged in. Like it just feels like there's more stretches where the other team just cannot get a good shot. Am I off on this? What do you think?
No, and it feels like they'll spend a bunch of time trying to work all these switches, and like they end up with still a terrible matchup where like there isn't really a good, they think they have Allen on the perimeter or something, and it still just ends up horrible for them. Or we still have so much, help on the backside that it doesn't matter that they've gotten what they want, and it still ends up kind of an empty possession. Like it feels like there aren't a lot of answers, to attack us when those two guys are at their peak level.
And it's just so nice having 48 minutes of it, Like, I mean, that you just can't understate how valuable it is to have Evan Mobley protecting the paint against bench lineups instead of a guy like Tristan Thompson, who, a very admirable switcher, and good post defender, but like isn't going to be the rim protector that you need when a team is really pressuring you. So, I think those two have been great together. I know that the team didn't like close out to the All-Star break on the same ridiculous tear that they were on, but 18 out of 20, man, that's a bananas run. I mean,
that's why I said this was a normal game. Tonight was a normal NBA game. Teams do this constantly. We've been so spoiled over the last 20 games that this felt like, oh geez, what a terrible game. But like this is what a normal NBA team does. They struggle even against teams that aren't as good as them. Yeah,
and the Bulls shot the crap out of the ball for prolonged stretches of the game, both from mid range and from 3. It's just been really, really fun. Before we toss to our interview with Sam Merrill, I did want to hit on the fact that Cavs announced the signing today. They converted Craig Porter Jr. Over to a full-time contract. Obviously super exciting for Craig. It's hilarious that he made his G League debut today. maybe for the last time. I don't know exactly all the machinations, but yeah, I mean, obviously shout out to Craig Porter. What are your thoughts on the signing?
I think, and obviously, I can't even start to speak on all the specifics. But with the new CBA, it just becomes much, much, much harder to put together teams that cost a lot. Like the restrictions are not just your owner pays more, right? It's you lose access to specific trades, specific signings, all those kind of things. So having guys like Craig Porter Jr. on these super affordable deals, the Dean Wades of like these super affordable deals,
Sam Merrill.
Yes, exactly. Magnitude is more important than it's ever been before. Like it is more important than ever to have those kind of deals. So it's a huge win for the Cavs that this guy looks like he's going to be ready to step in next year and be a rotation player and be ready to contribute. And, he's going to be around for a while. He can grow with the team, and he's on this deal that, is crazy valuable, and we're able to build a rotation with guys that are super valuable, but also are not breaking the salary cap and forcing us to make hard decisions on other things we have to do. It's hard to like state just how valuable that is with the new restrictions that are coming down.
Yeah, I mean, not only is it hard with that, like the Cavs just don't have a lot of draft capital either. Like normally you're looking to fill out the back end of your rotation with, mid to late first rounders when you're a team of this caliber. And the fact that the Cavs are finding all this value on the margins means that it's just not that big of a deal that they don't have that much draft capital. Like we talked about this right before the trade deadline, where it's like, I wouldn't mind them, sending a second or two to go pick up a guy that might not even be in the rotation, because I'm not even sure I want the Cavs to draft someone in the second round because I don't know how they're going to roster them. It's
exactly.
Just like it's rare to see a roster with this much continuity, kind of like set for even next year. Like Okoro, correct me if I'm wrong, of the guys in the rotation, Okoro's the only one on an expiring deal right now.
Yeah, I believe so.
And so like we could they literally could just run it back, and that's not even mentioning the fact that they're going to have the mid-level exception available to them this summer. So to your point, like being smart, being able to lock up valuable rotation minutes with guys who you find on the margins is just so valuable. And then for Craig, it's just really cool, like this guy went from, went undrafted. And my favorite question that you'll see on Twitter is like, how did this guy go undrafted? It's like, well, he's 23. He's not much of a shooter. He's not very big. And he played for a mid-major. Those guys don't get drafted. So like, it is a credit to Craig. It is as much a credit to Craig in the front office for finding this guy and for this guy playing as well as he has, as it is a slight on the rest of the league for not seeing it, because he doesn't fit a lot of the conventional boxes. But like, I think if this team was, I don't know, 10% lower ambitions, he might be in the rotation right now. Like the fact that other guys have just earned the minutes and shown that they're doing it. It's one of those things where it's nice. How many times have we seen a roster at the beginning of the year we do this every year, we see like 10 or 11 guys we like, and we go, I don't know how everyone's going to get to play, and then everyone gets hurt, or at least two of them turn into pumpkins and they can't play. And you're like, why was I worried about this? I would kill for two more guys who could play.
Right.
And
you're using the deadline to fill that spot.
Yeah, and this has got to be one of the first Cavs teams in my adult fandom where I've done that. I've had that mental thought, and all the guys have played well enough where you go, oh man, someone's actually is good that has done everything, has exceeded expectations when he's been on the floor. Can't get on the floor. So the fact that they have this guy locked up long term gives themselves the high upside of if the guy can learn how to shoot from three, I mean, he immediately vaults into a tier near the top of the best backup point guards in the league. So it's just really, really exciting, and you can't help but be proud of him. And the Cavs now have one roster spot. You see reports that they might be able to sign someone on the buyout market now to kind of fill out their roster. Am I crazy for being like, I'm not like crazy worried about it? I don't know if I'm like, normally when the Cavs have room for a buyout guy, like last year I was like, checking every guy who got bought out. I was checking. I was going on Spot Track and seeing who was available at every position. Like, I'm not that worried about it this year. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess they should, because there's no reason not to.
Yeah, you have to. You probably should if you can stay under the tax.
But yeah, I just don't care. Like, we already have, between Merrill and like Craig Porter Jr., there's already guys that we're not playing enough in our rotation. Not like we're not playing enough like it's somebody's fault. Like, we just don't have the place to play them more than what we are already. So we're not going to sign somebody that's going to join the rotation or anything. So it's hard to care. I don't think there's anybody else, or there's anybody on the buyout market that I'm necessarily excited about in a way that like fills some major gap either. So, That's the other side where there's not some obvious target where I'm like, oh yeah, that guy could step in and fill XYZ gap, because we don't have a ton of huge gaps, like obvious gaps, and there just isn't anybody on that market that looks like the guy who could do that either.
Yeah, more than I have ever been as a Cavs fan. I'm just ready to roll with the guys we got. That's why I was geeked we didn't make a move at the deadline. That's why I'm not crazy worried about any buyout guys. And like I just feel like the stuff we need, since we're not like a true blue title contender right now, I think that's probably fair to say. I know some people will see 18 out of 20 and be like, why not? I get that. But like I feel like everything I need to learn about this team, I need to learn with what we have here. Like there's no lever that will make it easier for me to evaluate whether these core four are going to be able to get us to the heights we need to get, that they need to get us to. And like ultimately, isn't that all that matters? Like if we had like a Luka Doncic or something where it's like, okay, we've got like a top 3 player in the league, that I know no matter what, if I get him the right team, he'll probably get me there. Like I think the Cavs are at the next tier down of like, we need to figure out if our best young guys have that level of a ceiling together. And the team, in my opinion, has that.
It's been a huge thing that, like, really from a role player standpoint, you couldn't ask for much more than what we've gotten this season, with Okoro playing much better. Strus has been awesome. Dean Wade has been awesome. You've got Levert's been awesome. Like, we aren't, a big problem last year, so we just didn't have anybody else to go to. It was the core four, and it really got bleak after that just because of injuries, and guys hadn't kind of made that step yet. So I think that's helpful in the evaluation point too, where we've got guys with different skill sets that complement our guys. They're all playing well. We've got the infrastructure now. Let's see what they can do when they get there. And even then, they're still young. I mean, Mobley's super young. Like, we don't know what he's going to be in 2-3 years. So, I don't know. I feel like when you hear a lot of the conversation around the Cavs, there's a lot more urgency than maybe I have on some of this stuff, where it's like, we're still super young. Like, there's still a ton of space to just internal growth before you start pulling a bunch of levers.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I think most of that urgency comes with, the best player on the team's status often being in the news. But like, as things kind of fall off left and right there, it starts to feel like continuity is an easier play than maybe it looked like. And you're making roster decisions based on not scarcity and fear, but you're making roster decisions based on what's the best road to a championship. And that is a lot better position to be at the bargaining table with, no matter what you're doing. So like, I feel like it's just kind of been the dream outcome for the Cavs. Even if they come to the conclusion, after this year or next year or the year after, that the core isn't there, like they're operating at least from a position of strength right now. And that is very, very valuable. So
yes, for sure.
Jeff, thank you so much for popping on. You are the best third honorary co-host in the history of the Chase Down. We love you dearly.
Yes.
And thank you very much. Have a good night, buddy.
Thanks. You too.
All right, gang. Thank you for sticking around. We have a special treat for you here. As yesterday, I got a chance to sit down with Sam Merrill for about 10-12 minutes. And just talk to him about his meteoric rise. So without further ado, here's Sam Merrill. I am so pleased to be joined by Sam Merrill, sharpshooting guard of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Sam, how are we doing today?
Doing great. How are you?
Not too bad, man. We can jump right into it because you've had, a very meteoric rise this year. You went from playing in the G League last year, you get called up to the main squad. This year, you start the year kind of on the fringe of the rotation, and then all of a sudden you're breaking 3-point volume records. Like what has this season felt like for you? Did you have any idea this was coming? This level of success? How did you kind of maintain that level of confidence? Through some rough years where you were dealing with injuries, where you weren't, with the main club, like. What was your mindset to kind of keep yourself ready for, to capitalize on this kind of opportunity?
Yeah, certainly hasn't been an easy last few years and whatnot, but I think, playing in the G League last year and just having a full even though it was in the G League, basically a full regular season where, played 50 games, maybe something like that. I don't know exactly how many, and just got to go out there and play and be healthy and kind of get back into a rhythm, which I really hadn't had since college, was really good for me. And I felt like that's where I gained, the confidence that I could do what I was doing in the G League at this level, just because I felt like everything I was doing was translatable. And then had a really good summer league. That only, grew my confidence even more. And all summer, the past few years, my summer workouts have been either just trying to make a team or try and stick with the team or whatnot. But this summer I tried really hard to focus my work around being able to actually play and contribute, and what can I do that's going to help this team. And I feel like that really helped just from a mindset standpoint. And I knew it wasn't going to be easy to play. We had a lot of guys and we're a very deep team, and I knew that it was going to take some patience and maybe take some time, but just tried to make sure that I was physically and emotionally ready at any time. And fortunately, when those opportunities came, I was able to, for the most part, make the most of them.
Yeah, I feel like I've heard you talk about your G League experience more than most players. Like a lot of time when I hear players talk about the G League, it's like it was a thing that I had to kind of work through. You talk about it almost like it was an opportunity. Can you kind of speak to the difference between, being at the end of an NBA rotation, really only getting to play garbage time versus like playing every night, getting a chance to like get up volume and like find yourself in rhythm and prove yourself in that setting?
Yeah, it's really important. And I mean, the G League's not like in some incredible league or anything like that. Like it certainly has its flaws from a talent standpoint and whatnot. But like I said, for me, like I graduated in 2020 from college. My rookie year, I was in Milwaukee and hardly played. Obviously, we won a championship. There was a G League. It was a G League bubble. I played 5 games in that and then got called back up. And then the next season, I was in Memphis, played like 5 games, then got hurt, missed the whole season. And so it had been 2 full years since I had really just gone out there and played. And that's why it was so important for me just to go get my rhythm back, go get my confidence. And I do think, like, especially if you get an extended run down there in the G League, I think it can be good for most guys.
Yeah, I think it certainly was good for you. I think you were making headlines with the 3-point volume that you had there, and you're making headlines with the 3-point volume you have at the NBA level. When you hear like 17 3-point attempts per 100 possessions, like highest volume like in the modern history of the league, are you aware, does it feel like you're like shooting that much, or does it just feel like, hey, I'm just doing my job and I'm doing what people are asking of me? It doesn't feel exceptionally different, or does it feel like, dang, I'm really getting them up?
Yeah, I mean, most nights where I get up 6, 7, it just feels fairly normal. I mean, there's been a couple of games like Atlanta, I shot 14 and went like 5 for 14, but honestly, it's like I'm not a guy that's just trying to throw up anything. Like, I genuinely feel like, aside from a heat check or two, I genuinely feel like every 3 I take is a 3 that I feel comfortable that I can make. And obviously I have a pretty quick release. So like what's open for me is what's maybe not open for a lot of other guys. So maybe it feels like I'm taking some quick ones, but that's just, they feel like they're open to me. So there's definitely been some nights where, I've taken 6, 7, and 8, 9 minutes, and I'm like, wow, that's a lot of 3s. But you go back and watch, and there are 3s that I feel good about. So I always say I just try and play the right way, but understanding what the right way is for me on this team.
Yeah, and like, to be clear, it's clearly working. I mean, you're shooting an unbelievable percentage on that volume. It really did kind of change what the team really needed it, especially when they were down those players. And it's been really, really fun to see, and I've been trying to tell anyone who will listen to our podcast that, like, this is not just a normal. There's a lot of good shooters in the league. There aren't a lot of people shooting at this volume, at this accuracy. So I got to imagine it's been fun. But I do want to ask you about this, because something that I've hammered a lot is one of my pet peeves, Sam, in the league, is when people talk about how good a team's culture is, and it's always when the team's like on their rise, you know. And I've always found culture to be best tested when things are not going great. You know, the season starts out a little bumpy, then everyone gets hurt, and then you guys break off this crazy run. Can you speak a little bit about that culture, that resilience within the locker room to kind of prove like, hey, no, we are building something here. We are more than the sum of our parts, and we're going to go prove it to you.
Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest thing that I've seen with this team is it's 15 or 17 or however many guys, whatever, good guys. Like everyone genuinely cares about each other. There's zero fighting or beef or anything like that at all. Like just a lot of really, really good relationships, and the trust level is very high, and you have to have that in this league with all the egos and guys wanting to get their numbers and their money and whatnot. Like when things start going wrong, like to an extent they were at the beginning of the season, like if you have guys that are really about themselves or not great dudes, it can turn things quickly. But you know, we lose 2 at Boston, 2 tough games, and we're 13-12 at the time, and that's when those 2, Evan and DG, got hurt, and that's a time where a team can kind of fold over. And because I think of the relationships that we have, just, you know, there was confidence in guys like me and Craig who were going to come in and play more, and a genuine, you know, joy being around each other. That's the kind of stuff that you have to have. And I think that's why we were able to figure some things out and start playing much better.
Yeah, you bring up Craig, and I feel like I can't let you go without asking you about that summer league experience, because, you know, summer league is not known for being like the best basketball. You know, It's not known for guys that are running sets for each other, playing for each other. It's a showcase. Guys are trying to get jobs, and that's perfectly okay, you know. That was not what the Cavs summer league team was. Can you talk a little bit about like that experience playing with that group of guys, and, you know, how you guys were able to pull together and, you know, win the summer league championship? Because that was not, I normally don't care about summer league teams, you know, that much either. You know, I'm just here to see a few prospects, but yet you guys had this wonderful chemistry, this wonderful run. Can you speak a little bit about what it was like playing with that group?
Yeah, it was fun. We started with our practices, and Josh Broghammer was coaching, and we were working on some of the things that the Cavs were going to try and implement this year with our new system and whatnot. And after about 2 days, he took a job with Dallas, and so they decided to have Mike G coach, who's the G League coach, and he immediately just went right back to all the stuff we were running with the Charge last year. And because of me and Sharif and Isaiah, 3 guys that had played a lot of minutes together last year, and then obviously, you know, we had a ton of talent for a summer league team with Luke and Khalifa and Imani and Craig, and who else? We had Pete. We had a couple more guys that, you know, a lot of guys that really knew how to play. And I remember in the championship game, we were playing Houston, and the guy coaching them was Ben Sullivan, who was an assistant with Milwaukee when I was there. And I was joking around with him during the game about how, you know, we were killing him at the time. I made a joke to him, and he was like, bro, you guys have been running these plays for years together. Like it's almost like this, you guys aren't even a summer league team. And that's kind of how it was. Like the guys that had played together with the Charge, we knew exactly, you know, who we were. And then the other guys picked up on it real quickly. So that was a really fun experience.
Awesome, man. Well, I don't want to take up any more of your time. Thank you so much for coming on. Congratulations for all your breakout success. It's been unbelievably fun to watch as a fan of the team. Last question: got any plans for All-Star break? Or you're just gonna relax, kick your feet up, and catch your breath?
Yeah, just relax. Just going home, back to Utah, play a little golf, see some family. It'll be a nice break. I think we all need it.
Awesome, man. Well, you guys have certainly earned it. 17 out of your last 19. One of the best runs in the history of basketball, if you look at point differential. So unbelievable work out of you guys. And Sam, thank you so much for joining.
All right. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
All right, gang. That was Sam Merrill joining, talking about all sorts of things. It was really fun kind of hearing that how the summer league team kind of came together. Talk about just what we're perceiving from the outside, that this is a team full of good dudes who, you know, lift each other up under adversity and don't tear each other down. So thank you so much to Sam for joining. Thank you so much to the Cavs. 18 out of 20 to head into the All-Star break. What a freaking run, guys. We're on pace for 56 wins. You couldn't get odds on 56 wins when this team was 13 and 12. So just so dang thankful for this team. Glad for those that get to take a break. Excited to watch Donovan. Excited to watch Amani, who just got added to the Rising Stars game. So it's going to be a really, really fun All-Star break. We'll be back beginning of next week. Probably do a mailbag or something like that. But if you're here on YouTube, thank you so much. If you don't already, make sure you subscribe to the pod. Make sure every time you're joining a live stream that you're hitting that like button. If you are listening to the audio version, go ahead and do what we always ask you to do. Subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe. Help us cook those books. Thank you so much for tuning in. Go Cavaliers. What a run. Stay safe, everyone. And as always, go Cavs.